Have you ever wondered, who was that idiot that used a harp to murder a Gorgon? Or, who was that lad with the weird clothes? Well, wait no longer, for now you can find out the story of Perseus. Perseus, the first, the greatest, the son of Zeus and the princess Danae, born when Zeus took the form of golden rain and falling down upon her while she slept. When her father, the king Archesius, found out about this, he would have been doubly surprised, as he had imprisoned her, on finding that he would die at the hands of one of his grandsons. He locked his only child in a bronze room, with slits in the ceiling to let air and light. By all means, the girl was not in discomfort. She had maids, servants, and was only declined one thing: to see a male other than her father. This was because the king wanted anything that could end his death stopped at any cost. He loved his daughter, but loved himself more. He had to get rid of the child, and the way she was acting, her too. He couldn't kill her or the child. This is because if he stabbed or suffocated a family member, the three Furies from the underworld would rip open the ground and whip him as they dragged him down. Instead, he ordered Danae and her baby shut inside a wooden box and the lid nailed down. He then had them thrown off a cliff, ensuring that their lives were down to the gods, the rocks, and the sharks. The box did not go into the water once, as the boy's father, Zeus, was looking over him and his mother. It took 2 more days until they were stopped by a kindly fisherman, Dectus. He took Danae and the baby Perseus to his cottage on the island Zephyrus. As Perseus grew up, he quickly became the fastest and the strongest of his age. Eventually, he caught the attention of the king, Polydectes, the brother of Dectus. After the king spotted Perseus, he then found about Danae and fell in love. Polydectes knew that he could easily get rid of Dectus, but to get rid of the boy, that will be hard. After a few months, the king called a meal to all the young men, about 17 to 21. He announces that he would go to race chariots against the king from another land to win his daughter. The king he was up against was one of the best chariot racers in all of Greece. He also happened to have a really pretty daughter, and every year princes from all over the Mediterranean came and pay a large amount of money to race against him to win his daughter as their bride. If they beat him, they get the money back and the daughter, but nobody ever wins. Each young man brought what their family could offer to help the king in his race. Some gave their finest horses, for example. Perseus knew that his family was too poor to give anything to the king, and he told them so. Polydectes proceeded to guilt Perseus into giving him something. He said the head of the monster Medusa would help him sufficiently. In fact, it was just an excuse to get rid of Perseus. When he got home, Perseus told Danae all about the feast and how he had heroically offered to go kill the Gorgon Medusa. But also, who is Medusa and what is a Gorgon? Well, if he watched the JMI production video or the new podcast on Medusa, then he would already know, as you guys definitely watched it, and I don't need to explain anything, right? Anyway, Medusa was a Gorgon with sharp claws as hard as brass and venomous snakes as hair. Anyway, his mother was clearly not happy about this. She told him to go change the king's mind, but Perseus just said the father had already rounded up his crew, and they will take him to port of Papyrus, where he will start his journey. When Perseus got to Athens, he travelled a long way to Delphi. The free and famous priestess would give you your fortune. Many people went there, so Perseus had to wait in the queue for 2 days in total. When he finally got there, the priestess told him that he must first travel to the land where people do not live on the corn of Demeter, but the fruit of the oak. This is very confusing, as Perseus thought, but the priest who worked to help the prophet hurried him out because many more people waited in line to find their fortune. Eventually, an old lady told him that the priestess meant that he had to go to the grove of Dodona. Delphi was later made not free, so the priestess became very rich, which could have been a starter of the corruption that surrounded the Greek world towards the end of the prime time, because certain cults did take advantage. These were the cults known as the cult of Cosmos, and the cult of Hephaestus, and the cult of Ares. Along the way, Perseus ran out the little money that he had and had to live off the wild berries he found on bushes, until he got to Dodona, where the priests and priestesses who kept the grove in shape welcomed him and fed him fresh bread, made from the acorn of the trees. Bear in mind, when the prophet of Delphi said of the fruit of the oak, she meant acorn, which is technically a nut, as it has a hard shell, but also produces a seed, which classes it as a fruit. They told him they had to wait until morning, as the trees were most likely awake by then, and were not too bothered by the heat. This did confuse Perseus, but when he entered the heart of the grove, he could hear whispers all around him. But then 2 divine figures appeared in front of him, a beautiful lady and a handsome man. He was quite in shape and wearing next to nothing. Well, by our standards, Perseus could tell that they were gods of sort, but not him. "Hello, stepbrothers," said the woman. You what?" Perseus replied. "The great god Zeus has sent us, his favourite children, to give you advice, his favourite mortal son." "Wait, you what?" "Perseus? Me? Zeus is my dad?" His mother had always told Perseus that he was the son of Zeus, but he had never really believed her, as well. It's a hard thing to believe. The 2 gave him many gifts: a harp, a weapon which was very sharp and was based on the scythe that Gaia used for Cronus. The helm of darkness was made for Hades during the Titanochromy, and the power to conceal the wearer in the shadow. Hermes gave his winged sandals, a pair of sandals that thought to fly, could send the wearer in the air. Next, Athena gave him her shield, Aegeus. Lastly, they gave him a leather satchel. "So, where do I go next?" "We can't help you any more. You must consult the trees." With that, the god and goddesses appeared. It wasn't long before the whisperers started again. They whispered and argued with each other. Perseus asked them where they should go next. They replied with an assortment of answers, but which in the end added up that he should go seek the Grae, 3 women who were so old they shared an eye and 1 tooth. They were daughters of the elemental gods Phorcys and Keto. I'll have the spellings of all the names in the description. Different poets on how they looked. For example, one poet said that they had the arms and heads of a woman, but the bodies of swans. Their names were Dino, which meant the terrible, Eno, which meant the warlike, and Peris, or Persis, the destroyer. Which, I guess are all strange names considering they were all old hags, and they lived in a cave on the side of an island on the coast of Libya. Perseus travelled there, and along the way got the hang of his newly equipped items. Once he got there, he knew he'd have to bribe them in some way, but he had nothing. Then he remembered that they shared one eye, so he snuck inside the cave and overheard them talking. Then one said, "Give me the eye, it's my turn," and Perseus took this chance to strike, as he bolted and took the eye. He finally spoke up, telling them he'd only give the eye back if they would tell him where to find Medusa. It still took some convincing. It seems that some old people may not have changed, because in the play was written about Perseus, grey ladies don't stop talking about some random things. It takes them forever to actually tell him about Medusa. Eventually, they tell him that the island was not far from where they were, and Perseus stayed there until nightfall, waiting. When he thought the time was right, he flew over the island of the Gorgons. I say this, but there were only 3 on the island. When he got there, he went to the highest point, and he found where the 3 Gorgons slept. It was an easy spot to Medusa, as she was the only one with snakes as her hair. Careful not to look, he used the shield as a reflection, using that to look at Medusa, otherwise he would have turned to stone. With the harpe, he quickly swiped off the head of Medusa. Next, he put the helm of darkness on and took the Gorgon's head. The other 2 were immortal, so he could not kill them, but if they could not see him, then they couldn't find him, and he speedily flew off the island. As the morning came, he was still flying, and he had just spotted land. Or was that another rock? Yeah, of course it was. Wait, was that a woman over there? He flew over just in case, and to his surprise, he found the woman tied to a rock. You know, a day-to-day thing you come across. And as it is Greek mythology, she was naturally naked. Not to be rude, but, is there a reason why you're strapped to a rock naked? She replied with, "My mother has a big mouth and went around saying that I was prettier than all the Nereids." The Nereids were sea nymphs, often seen with Poseidon. Of course, this angered Poseidon, so they made me a sacrifice to Poseidon, in the hopes that the sea monster will go away. Oh look, here it is now. True, the sea monster was there, but Perseus just jumped in the water, and after a few minutes, surfaced, and declared that the monster had been slain. He took her back to her kingdom, where she introduced him to her parents, the king and queen. They were very grateful of Perseus, but it wasn't long until her uncle opened the doors with all his soldiers. "I heard that the princess had been saved, but she's mine by right, so I'll just take her back now, or will I have to take her by force?" "You won't have to do anything," Perseus said, while undoing his satchel. He shouted at the king and queen and princess to look away. The uncle and the soldiers did not, however, get the memo. Every single one of them was stone, and the king and queen were amazed. Perseus announced that he must go home, and his mother would be worried sick. He also had a kingdom to prove wrong. He asked Andromeda, not suddenly at all, if she wanted to see the world, and she said yes. Without an instant, they left the small kingdom, and Perseus retraced his steps, getting food off the grove donor, going past Delphi. As he knew where he was going, it took him no less than 3 days. And not 2 this time. When he got back to his island, he came to see that the cottage was empty, and Danae and Dictys were nowhere to be seen. A friendly fisherman told him that Polydectes had taken them prisoner, and as he had gone to their cottage, but Danae had refused to be his wife, but then had married his brother. So he had taken them both captive and to his castle. Perseus wasted no time, flying over with Danae still in his arms. When he got to the chamber door, he overheard the king asking who he should murder first. At that moment, the perfect moment, Perseus chose that time to strike. He kicked down the chamber doors and declared that it'd be the king to die first. He shouted at his mother and his stepfather to look away, again, getting his head out of his satchel. In a flash, he pointed towards the king and his 2 guards. What were left were 3 stone statues. Later on, Perseus made the scene a tourist attraction. He also had Herms placed around the island. They were little statues of Hermes, which was supposed to give good luck to travellers, merchants, and shop owners. Lastly, he had a temple for Athena put under construction. The next king was Dictys, and his queen was his wife, Danae, with Perseus and Andromeda left behind to explore the world, or the Mediterranean at least. First, they went to Perseus' homeland, Argos, to see what it was like, as they had not been there for more than a few weeks of his life. They discovered that the king, Aristarchus, had turned bitter and cruel after casting his daughter and his grandson off a cliff. He was shortly toppled from the throne, and nobody was sure of his whereabouts. With a bit of disappointment, they left Argos, after in fact being offered the crown, which they replied with, "Time to think." They next wandered around mainland Greece, Perseus funding their travels by winning competitions with sports and athletics. They eventually heard that the king of Larissa was holding one of the richest games of the year, so they made their way north to where the competition was being held. Some of Greece's best athletes would be playing. Points would be managed on how many rounds they won. Each one that Perseus played, he won. And it wasn't hard either. At last, it came to the discus. He threw it so far that it went past the line and onto the crowd. The roar of delight was soon followed by a groan of deep pain. He had hit someone. Perseus ran to the place. It was an old man with blood coming out of his beard. He cradled the elder in his arms. I'm so sorry. I don't know my own strength. May the gods forgive me." To his surprise, the old man started to laugh. No, don't worry, young man. Not many can say they have defeated an oracle. Now give His Majesty air. His Majesty? Yes, don't you know? The King Perseus of Argos. I'll let time for that to sink in. Accident or not, it was a blood crime, and Perseus and Andromeda made their way to the Temple of Athena, where they placed the scythe, the helm of darkness, and the winged sandals on the altar. Next they held up the head of Medusa and the shield, where Athena herself appeared, and she placed the head into the shield. From then on, that shield was later known as Aegeus of Athens. Athena told Perseus that their father was proud, and that he did well. They eventually went on to found Mycenae, a great kingdom of its time. After they died, Zeus gifted them the best gift he could ever give. They were placed in the stars as constellations. They were probably the only heroes to have a happy ending.